Hi everyone, it's Jeff Evelyn with TxMQ. I'm actually just going to kind of get started here. I got a little bit of an introduction to what we're going to be talking about today, and then I'll throw it over to Arnold. We still have a few folks probably looking to log in, so um, if there's any problem, we're certainly going to have this all recorded, so we'll send it out to everybody after we're done with the presentation as well. Just again, thank everybody for showing up today. I work in business development at TxMQ. Right now, thank you for joining us on this talk about APIs and microservices. Our webinar today is titled From SOA to Microservices, a journey from legacy to modernization. Arguably, one of the most important journeys an IT team can take. If you're not familiar with TxMQ, we're a consulting, staffing, and development shop. Our mission is really to help organizations evolve their technologies to really meet the demands of the digital economy. TxMQ has been around for quite a while, about 40 years now. And in that time, there's been a lot of changes in methodologies, governing how businesses tackle development. New technologies have really advanced the way we interact with each other, our clients, and customers. So, these advancements have greatly increased what customers expect from our businesses or any businesses that they transact or interact with. Giving customers access to what they want requires thousands or even millions of connections to access the data and services. It requires a big commitment from IT to develop quickly and often. That's really one of the reasons we're having this talk today. Walk you through some of the steps to take in your own modernization efforts when you're going from service-oriented architecture to more of a microservices. Our host Arnold Shoon, who is the solutions director here at TxMQ, he's put together a great presentation for us today. So I'm going to throw it over to Arnold and let him take it from here.
Excellent. So, sorry, but like I was saying when I was on mute, my name's Arnold Shoon. I've been working in the integration space for my career, about 18 plus years now. Started with MQ, IBM's MQ, did a little bit on Message Broker, now called App Connect Enterprise. Spent a good decade working on the data power stuff, as well, then moved into more of the open source Node.js primarily, with a touch on build pipelines, DevOps, site reliability engineering. And my focus these days, I would say, is APIs as a product. And hence this conversation that we're going to have today. And in today's talk, I'd look to talk a little bit about, why should I care about APIs? What role does the mainframe play in an API as a product? What do I do with the SOA ESB software that I purchased in the last decade? And then we'll get into a little bit more of the open source stack with Loopback, Node.js framework, API management concepts using IBM tooling as well.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
So, I mean, why should we even bother with APIs, right? Well, the first thing, they're everywhere. And they also connect things at scale. I find that they're very sticky, and we have a solid, reliable, and easy, when we have a solid, reliable, easy to use API. They allow your company to offer new services and build new business models rapidly outside of your core competency, right? So APIs really is the way that we connect with other businesses and services, right? Allows us to build new platforms, easy to use, quick adoption, quick business value as well. And some businesses that you may have heard of that are API first businesses, right? Stripe, credit card processing, thousands of customers today, billions of dollars flowing over their network. Twilio, SMS messaging as well. Expedia.
Arnold, don't mind me. Sorry, Arnold, just quick interruption. I don't know if you mean to advance the slides, but I think the slides staying the same.
I did. Okay, let me. I apologize.
And what you do is set up regions inside that. They're kind of like, so
how about now?
Yeah.
Title cross industry collaboration.
Uh-huh.
Okay, excellent. Small hiccups. So, I mean, looking at Stripe, that's not really a new idea. I mean, Visa, MasterCard, they're processing credit card transactions for customers as well. But why is Stripe such a disruptor? I would say that they provide an API that's simple to use, pretty cost effective, right? You know you're paying by use. You know, they also provide a lot of analytical features in the background and implementation times that are generally 5 times faster than traditional products in the industry today. So quick adoption, quick value to your business as well. But I'm assuming most of us on this call already do SOAP services today, right? I remember, obviously, we've probably heard of SOA, registries and repositories and web services. In a way, I would say that SOA was the first rev of APIs. And API management now is the second evolution of what SOA was for the last 10 years. And again, why have APIs exploded versus SOA web services? From a technical perspective, I would say that, you know, while they do the same thing, the ability for or the support of REST services using HTTP verbs, which matches pretty much our CRUD operations, was a big plus. Security, while or security is much simpler in the API space, right? You know, JWT tokens, so cookies from the browser perspective, is an easy concept, and basic auth as well, right? So a much simpler implementation than say SAML was, right? And then there's some ancillary cloud technologies like NoSQL databases, serverless implementations, plus loose data coupling and open source implementation frameworks like Loopback that really push the dev community to focus on APIs as a product and APIs as the technology for interactions within trading partners. Now, let's be honest here, right? We're not a startup. We don't work at startups that have greenfield implementations. Generally, our enterprises have invested in applications and software technologies that run business processes for us today, right? These investments have spanned 30, 40 years as well, right? We have decades old interconnected via a web of systems, cron jobs, FTPs, web services, database extracts, BPM processes, etc. So for us to encapsulate that as a simple to use API is a very complex implementation. So looking at, you know, what an architecture can be for this API, you know, I've come up with what I consider the recipe for enterprise APIs. And in that recipe, I think there are 4 things that are very important. The first being a rules engine. And this one is one that most people probably don't think of as core to an API. But looking at the simplicity of use versus, you know, what actually is going on behind the scenes, a rules engine is very important. So, example, a quote API. We may have different rules for promotions, bulk versus retail, customer levels, right? You know, prime partners versus non-prime partners, et cetera, that we want within that API. So putting those in a rules engine makes sense and allows us to change the behavior of the API without actually having to change code. An ESB. I mean, ESPs knows how to talk to everything, right? So they speak database calls, JSON, XML, COBOL, files, queues, in all sorts of formats as well. So I've also look at an ESP as a core functionality for what I consider enterprise API. A security gateway is also important. We're now opening ourselves up to the world. We're opening ourselves up to self-service consumption of our data. So we want to make sure that the individuals or companies that are calling us can do so securely and give access as needed, while at the same time protecting ourselves from the outside world. And then an API management system. So we know who's calling us, who's registered. We can manage APIs through a life cycle, deprecate old APIs, have a self-service community and forums for interactions when bugs, individuals find bugs or request new features within the product. And like I mentioned, enterprise, we have 10 plus years of systems that we've adopted, including Kix, VPN, third parties that we interact with today, FTP, which will probably never go away, and MQ. And in the previous slide, I mentioned Kix, and I want to mention or highlight the mainframe when we look at enterprise APIs. Now, let's be honest. Generally, most people don't think mainframe as cutting edge technology when we think of APIs or Uber or Trilio, like I mentioned before, right? However, the mainframe is an all-purpose system. Yes, we probably have assets that are running on there, and COBOL programs, Kix COBOL, IMS, etc. But we could also run all the new stack technologies, right? So we can run Node.js or Java, Spring Boot applications. We can run Red Hat OpenShift and have our own private internal cloud. Fairly secure, handles multiple different types of workload, and fast, right? So having this in the mix when you're considering your enterprise API app, environment, it's probably good, at least a good idea to consider the mainframe as the runtime for portions or core portions of your enterprise API recipe. And as we talked about the mainframe, I also wanted to bring up MQ as well, right? MQ's still going, 20 plus years now. They recently released version 9, and as part of version 9, the REST API has now come forth in light. So highlighting that REST API is, as a way to take your messaging-based infrastructure that's running today as is, and be able to integrate with some of the more newer techs, newer stacks, cloud applications, cloud native applications that you're building are key. So again, large messaging-based shops, I believe this programming interface will simplify integrating the new experiences and new applications with your existing assets. And taking a step back, we've covered sort of what, why I should care about APIs and the enterprise view of what an API can be and what it needs to interact with. And, I wanted to, first stop there and just kind of recap that, because I think that's important as we now pivot into the open source arena with Loopback and Node.js frameworks and API management tools as well. So my opinion, one opinion of many, but again, I believe the business rules engine core component. If you do have an ESB or messaging assets today, you can look at reviving that for building an API. as well as the concepts of the security gateway and API management as well. So pivoting now into this open source Loopback framework, and this is actually a company that IBM bought and then contributed the technologies into the open source community. Recently released version 4, I think it was last year, December. And I've been using this in a lot of my applications that I'm putting together as I find it a pretty in-depth model-based or model-driven framework for building APIs on existing assets, right? It is Node.js based, so it's a Node runtime. It's built off of Express, so Express is probably one of the most familiar packages in the Node community for individuals who are looking at data access or even BFF type models in their applications. And I would say that the Loopback extends the Express framework to give you the ability to not only have or support CRUD on HTTP, but you also can interact with multiple databases, have drivers allowing you to build models off of database data. You could add security plugins, so JWT, OAuth 2.0, etc. Plus interact with existing assets that you've, from the SOA world, right? The web services, XML-based services, including MQ as well, right? So wanted to share or at least highlight Loopback when we think about APIs as a product and how we build or what technologies we might consider using when we're building the APIs as well. And once we have a set of APIs that we want to share, either internally or externally, consider an API management product. So the API management product allows us to take what we've built, version control it, catalog it, and create products as well that consumers can log into the portal themselves, browse what we're offering, and view monetization plans, so plans per payment per call, and integrate with Stripe. At least the IBM system does, and then also gives product owners the ability to view what APIs are being used by whom, including versions as well as the general analytics around the API usage as well. Now, IBM's product also not only REST-based, but you can use SOA-based or SOAP-based APIs from your existing stack in the API management tool. Like I was saying before, you package your APIs into what's called a product, and then from a product you have catalogs that customers can view what's in there. The publish and promote concept of, hey, I've just published a new product, you might be interested in this. I can deprecate older products as well from my catalog. And the subscription and community management, I think that's a very key component as well. So just a little bit on what that is. It allows you to subscribe to a product and then write blogs or posts to a forum about the product if you're having issues. Generally, that's what we see, but also, feature requests, etc. Open tickets, and in that scenario as well, and have the developers be able to respond as well as make fixes, etc. as needed. And then on the insight side, right? So on the analytics side, right? Who's using what's most popular, what's a security pattern if you have an A/B type model, what features are being requested, etc. Obviously, the ability to build dashboards and offload your usage data to other tools, Splunk, Tableau, etc. as well. And the API management system today, multi-cloud, I think that's one of the things that IBM has really pushed in the last 5 years, and more so in the last 3 years, really. It's the ability to deploy on the cloud of your choice, whether that be a private cloud, so internally, Red Hat OpenShift, or externally on your AWS, Google Cloud Platform, etc. Right? So Kubernetes based, and the ability to use your enterprise cloud provider of choice, if you have one. If not, right, you can look at running this internally like some clients have, or keep it externally as well. Now, I mean, this was a short chat, shorter than I think we had booked for, but I'm going to open it up to the forum, see if there are any questions. I feel like we've gone through the evolution of the enterprise in the last 25 plus years, right? So batch, mainframe based processing, into sort of this interconnected web with ESBs, SOA, and now more modern APIs, and how those technologies can still play and support your API as a product initiatives. So, opening it up, Jeff, let's open it up for any questions that may have, or I'll even start if anybody wants to say, does your company today have an API as a product initiative?
I'm not sure. Can you see the chat on there, Arnold, at all?
Oh, let me look for it.
Because we have someone asking, at what stage of maturity or size should an organization start thinking about API management product? Like, in other words, how many APIs would we need to have before it starts to make sense?
Excellent question. And I always say to customers that you need APIs before you manage them. Without having a core set of APIs which you think can fall into a product, there's no point in having an API management tool, in my opinion. The other part, and I'm going to flip back to the Loopback portion. There is this open source, API management concept. Obviously, you don't get the analytics, the full analytics and the product packaging, as well as the self-subscription, but you do get the API Explorer and Swagger off of Loopback. So, if what I see customers doing is when they're looking to launch new mobile applications or new digital applications that are more self-service based, that's probably when you start looking at an API management solution to support the internal application dev team. Once you have a good concept or a good ability for the API as a product, and then you want to start monetizing that, usually drives off of these digital transformation initiatives, then you most definitely would like a full-blown API management solution.
Okay, here's another one. We presently use APIs for internal integration purposes, but are considering exposing some to the outside trading partners. Obviously, security is a key. What else do you need to consider?
Security is probably the biggest consideration for this. Other considerations are life cycle, right? So if it's version 1, then version 1.1, how do I manage my life cycle as I add new features to the API, right? Also, I would say testing. So an automated testing solution as well. So the ability to push APIs, but make sure we don't break any existing functionality is key. So, outside of security, I would say automated testing, and with that, a automated push pipeline, right? As well as the idea of new features and how to include new features and versioning.
All right. Anybody else have any questions out there? There was a question that came across that asked, when the slides and the recording will be available. That should be available in the next day or two, barring any technical issues you might have.
All right, I see another question in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see what it says. Some of our APIs have become popular with the development team and are now putting pressure on the underlying services team in terms of performance. How do we handle that? So that's a great question. If you build it, they will come type mentality, right? But I've seen so. Hey, we're now getting a lot more usage out of this service / API that we built because it's important to key functions in our new application that we're pushing out the door. How do we handle that? So there's a couple ways I've seen people do it, right? So one, the limiting of ability to call, that's one. Obviously, that's not what you really want to do. But I say in today's world, there's the concept of cloud computing. Even internally, IBM has started changing their pricing structure for mainframes to allow for peak utilization. So when you get bursts of utilization, you can enable the mainframe to handle those bursts, and you get an extra charge on over the month, right? And that concept of that cloud computing of, hey, when you turn on the switch and as you consume more, we have availability, is starting being built into a lot of the computing aspects, right? So a lot of middleware are now moving to Kubernetes clusters, a lot of applications as well, right? Private, public, hybrid clouds, I've seen that as well for API implementation. So to be considered in your design of how to handle, let's call it core load plus peak load.
Right. And so the problem is, so in August, of course, this happened again.
Okay, I got another question there. I don't know if you see that.
I do not.
Wait, was it?
And so it happened in August, and then they looked at it again. I think they found the root cause.
Some of our APIs have become popular with the development team, and now are now putting pressure on the underlying services in terms of performance. How do we handle that?
Right, and I think that was the one I would just
that was
answer.
You're right. I'm sorry.
But recapping. I mean, and even a lot of the WAS applications to Liberty and the containerization of Liberty going forward. A lot of stuff is really focused on Kubernetes and containers. So even if you don't want to change the model of the application, the underlying service that you've already built, a look at the infrastructure itself and moving to a cluster container-based model is probably warranted.
Okay. Any other questions out there? All right. Okay, so that concludes today's this afternoon's presentation. As I said, the recording will be available. We have all your contact information as far as email, guys, so we'll send it out to you, links to it where you can get the slide deck and the recording itself. If you're interested, keep an eye out for that link, as well as please feel free to share that with your colleagues. I'm sure they might be interested in in this presentation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any content we might create in the near future if you're interested in that. So appreciate you taking the time with being us today. Hope you were able to take away something away from this today, and stay tuned, and a lot more in the future to be coming from us. Have a great day, and we hope to hear from you soon. All right, have a good day, everybody.